That's right. You're listening to Eat, Play, Live with me, Andi P, the show that's chasing dreams and crushing goals. My goal here is to help you live a healthier, happier, more balanced life. And yes, I am back in the studio after 3 glorious weeks in Cozumel, Mexico, which we are going to be talking about tonight as I participated in the Ironman 70.3 Cozumel, which if you've been listening at all, you should hopefully know that because I talk about it a lot. So I hope you're ready because there have been some amazing lessons learned along the way, and I'm really excited to share them with you. And hopefully you can find some ways to apply these lessons in your life as well, because it's cool stuff. So I want to start with the idea that you can do what you set your mind to. You can. You know that. I tell you this a lot. But I have a question. Is the mental challenge a bigger deal, or is it the physical challenge? Which one really carries more weight when you try to do something like an endurance event? Which one's more important? If you're not right mentally in what you're trying to do and how you get there and how you force yourself, you're not going to do it. And if you're not physically ready, you're not going to be able to do it. So is one more important than the other? I don't know. I don't know. So I'm going to go through some of the lessons that I learned along the way and during the event. And then maybe by the end of the show, we'll have some answers to that question and figure out, or maybe you can decide. You can let me know. So I don't have all the answers, most of them, but not all of them. So hopefully you've been here for the last few months and joining me on this journey as I have done this training, and then the last week where I did the tapering, where you taper down and prepare your body for this final big push of the goal. So a lot of people, in fact, followed. There's a app called the Ironman Tracker, and I had a link on my Facebook, and a lot of you friends followed on that, and it was, you have no idea. I mean, obviously during the event, I didn't know. In fact, I was just hoping the tracker was even working and tracking me. But after the fact, when I saw all the posts and the people following along, it was amazing. It was so cool to know that, I mean, you didn't have to watch it the whole time, but to check in every so often and go, oh, look, there she finished this little section. That was cool. So gotta love technology, right? So a lot of these things, these trackers, pictures from the event, I've been posting these on my Facebook and Instagram. So if you have missed out on any of this and you want to go back and check it out, you can always check my Facebook or Instagram at eatplaylive.andy. And you can ask questions. You can tell me whether you think the mental or the physical is more important after this show. You can let me know what you think, because I love to hear back from you. So yeah, so let's get into some of the lessons through the Ironman 70.3. Here's one thing you may not know. Why do they call it the 70.3? Well, this is a half Ironman, okay? So it is a total distance of 70.3 miles. It's a 1.2 mile swim, a 56-mile bike ride, and then a 13.1 mile run. So that equals 70.3. And it's funny because I knew that, but I don't really think about it. I don't know. I didn't really do the math on the numbers until I was running. And the run, well, we'll get to that, but the run was the least fun. And all of a sudden it occurred to me, hey, I'm 60 miles into the 70.3. Okay, I'm almost done. When you think about it that way, even though it's kind of early in the run, there's that mental thing. That's the mental part of it where you start going, oh, wait a second. No, this isn't just the beginning of the hardest part. This is almost the end. So those are the kind of mental tricks that you can kind of play with yourself when doing this type of event. So in true fashion of our show, let's start with the eating and the lessons learned along the way with eating. So training for a huge endurance event has some interesting things that you come across. So during training, I practiced eating. How's that for weird? But I practiced what I can eat. Like if you're on a bike ride, a really long bike ride, and even if you're not an endurance athlete, I had a friend that just did a trip where a group of people rode their bike like from one town to another, and it might have been 20 or 30 miles, and it was a leisurely pace, but it was still something that they weren't used to doing. And so you have to pack food so that you're fueling your body along the way. You don't want to get hungry, you don't want to run out of steam, when you're halfway in between here and there. So it's really good to know what can you eat along the way that's going to give you the energy you need and not slow you down, not upset your stomach, not cause any issues. So that was a huge part of my training, was figuring out what can I eat that's going to do exactly those things. So I did a lot of that in the months and weeks leading up to the event, and I'll share with you in a moment what I ended up actually eating. But the week, especially the last week before the event, that's where things really got interesting. So when I got down to Mexico, I went 2.5 weeks early because I wanted to acclimate, which I'm really glad I did. But also I wanted to get used to the food, because the food is a little different. And while I did cook a lot of my own food in my apartment there, I didn't cook everything myself. I would go out occasionally, and I didn't want to risk eating something that was going to cause me stomach problems, upset. You've heard about going to Mexico. There's some things that can cause your stomach to get upset. So, and also even something like spicy food. I love spicy food. I love hot sauce. Like, put that on everything. But not in the days leading up to an endurance event like that, because you do not want that coming back up. You don't want to be tasting that spicy halfway down the road. So, yeah, that was a bummer. Give that up. And alcohol, give that up for a while. And it's up to the individual, I would say, how long you feel like you need to give that up before you do something that's such a stressor on your body. But we know alcohol's not going to help us reach our fitness goals. So yeah, I gave that up too. Talk about tough, especially as I had some friends that showed up to help cheer me on. And once you have friends around, and they were certainly partaking in the alcohol, and I was total fuddy-duddy those last few days, but they understood. So in fact, oh my goodness, that last day, I was a wreck. I was an anxious, nervous disaster. So yeah, that was not fun at all. So, okay, day of food. I got up at 4:30 in the morning, and I knew that I wanted to eat breakfast before I started this event. And normally I would not eat that early in the morning. Your stomach is like, what are you even doing? But I knew that I needed to. So I ate my normal breakfast that I would eat every other day. I had 2 eggs, a tortilla, and a banana. And some days I'll add oatmeal or something like that, but I didn't want it to be too heavy. But I knew I wanted protein, I knew I wanted some carbs, and I knew I wanted the sugar and everything that comes with that banana. So that was what I ate that morning, and a couple of cups of coffee to give myself a little kickstart. With water, lots of water leading up to the event, water that morning, and then when I got out to where where it was going to start, we started with the swim. They had bottles of water for us there as well. So I drank another bottle of water. Here I'm about to jump in the ocean, but I just knew that I needed to be as hydrated as I could be. And I also brought a couple little squares of dark chocolate to give myself a little sugar boost before we jumped in the water. So that gave me a lot of fuel and seemed to do the trick in fueling the swim portion. Then during the bike ride, okay, we're talking about a 56-mile bike ride. It took, I was expecting it to take 4 hours, and I'll go over the times toward the end of the show, but I knew that I wanted to be able to eat pretty much every 30 minutes. And I had 3 big bottles of water attached to my bike. Never want to run out of water. And I knew they would have some along the way. I knew they would have Gatorade. I don't drink Gatorade because I think it's nasty. But I knew they would have water and I wouldn't run out. But never leave anything to chance. And don't eat anything the day of a big event like that you haven't already introduced to your body. That's asking for trouble. So I had packets of baby food. And I've talked about this before. In fact, I just ate one right before the show. I'm still eating the baby food. But they're so cool. I don't remember this when my kids were babies, but they have these squeezable packets of baby food and they have the coolest ingredients. You can get some that are just fruit, but you can get some that have sweet potatoes mixed in, chia, all kinds of different vegetables, and it's amazing the things they can put in there and then disguise with a little fruit, and you really just taste the fruit, but it's like a little superfood packet that tastes kind of like applesauce. So that was outstanding, and I had 3 of those packets along the bike ride, and I interspersed, easy for you to say, those between energy gels and energy packets, which if you've ever seen a bicyclist, they have those little packets of energy goo that they squeeze, and you can get those at any kind of bicycle shop or even some of the health food stores sell those. If you're ever interested in using those, I order mine off of Amazon because I can order organic ones, because some of the ones, even in the health food stores, some of the ones they sell, I don't know what all's in that stuff. So I try to keep things going into my body that are natural and organic as much as possible, not 100%. Actually, these little energy gel chewies were really cool. They're made by Cliff, and Cliff is not a sponsor, but I am looking for a sponsor for this show. So, hey, if you know anybody. Anyway, these little Cliff gummies, I would lick them and stick them to my bike, and they would actually stick to the bike for a couple of hours. They stuck there, and that was cool because I had about 8 of them stuck along the frame of the bike, and then when I wanted just a little something, I could eat one of those gummies, and that was pretty cool. That was a tip I got from a friend, and a lot of the people that saw me sticking them there were like, "That's cool." They didn't say that in English. A lot of the people were from other countries. This event attracts people from all over the world. There were approximately 3,000 people that participated in this particular Ironman event last weekend, and they were from everywhere in the world, so that was really cool to hear them. Anyway, back to the food. So the baby food, the energy gels, the energy chews. Also, I had salt tablets in a little container of salt that I would just put on my tongue, and that way if I felt like, I don't know how to explain exactly, but I kind of would just feel my body craving salt. And even though I had electrolytes in one of my water bottles, I had 2 that were regular water and one that had extra electrolytes, I still would feel like I'm sweating an awful lot here. And so I had that salt, and I think that helped really well. Also, then we get to the run. And here's the part where, you want your stomach to cooperate with you. So hopefully, that's why I practiced with all those energy gels, because sometimes those can upset people's stomachs. But we were all good, did the run. They have these things called honey waffles that are also sold at those same stores. But they've got sugar and carbs and things you need for a quick boost, which I definitely needed when this run started. It was so hot. It was 90 degrees with the heat index. They said it felt like 102. And I was looking on my Fitbit at where my heart rate was spiking. And when I started that run, it was like my body didn't really know how to adjust at first because it was so stinking hot. But so I had more gel packs, the honey waffle, I had part of a banana, and I'll tell you how that came about in a little bit. But those were the fuel. And again, every 30 minutes, I made sure to add some sort of fuel and then water, water, water. And it's tricky when you're running because if you drink too much water, you kind of start to slosh a little bit. And you don't really want to slosh. So I tried to take small sips, but frequently. And I would take water, and they would hand out waters, and I would drink some, and then I'd get tired of carrying the bottle, so I'd just dump the rest on my head and keep right on running. So by the time it was over, I was soaked, my shoes were soaked, everything was soaked. After the event was over, protein, and guess, more water. Yeah, just, you've got to stay hydrated. And anytime you're doing anything that is really making you sweat outside, drink like 3 times more water than you think you need. Whether or not you feel thirsty, a lot of people had trouble with the heat. Dehydration, heat stroke, heat exhaustion were real problems that they were seeing in the medical tents. And I'm really thankful that I practiced so much and that I live in Texas where it's easy to train, to do heat training, because I had a lot of opportunity to do these things when it was hot. And I learned how to keep myself hydrated and cooled down. And then getting to Mexico early, the humidity was nuts. And so, yeah, just getting acclimated to that made a huge, huge difference. So now what's next? It's over. I'm not burning as many calories as I was when I was in the peak of training, and certainly not the day of. But man, I liked eating all that food. I could eat pretty much all the time because I was burning it. And now I'm not going to be burning it like that. So time to regroup and figure out how to either cut back those calories or keep training. I'm not going to keep training at that level, so I've got to cut back the calories. And this is part of making healthy eating a lifestyle, is you realize there's parts of your life where you get to eat more calories, and there's parts of your life where you have to rein it back again. So I haven't stepped on the scale yet since returning from the trip because I've only been home for 2 hours. So tomorrow we'll see where we're at, and we'll regroup, come up with a new plan, and move forward from there. So maybe next week we can talk a little bit about what the new plan is going to look like, and hopefully it will be one that's more relatable. I get what I'm doing right now may not be, doing an Ironman may not be relatable to everyone, but the fact is I decided to do this event at the end of November last year. I started training in December. Before this, I have run 5Ks, a couple of 10Ks. I lifted weights, I was a bodybuilder, but I've never done anything like this. But I decided to do it, and that's why I keep wanting to explain the process to you so that you'll understand that that's how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. You pick your goal, and then you just take one little step, and you figure it out, and then you get there, and you get to the finish line. So, in fact, let's transition into play, because the working out part of it is play to me. Okay, I have my Peloton bike, and I was really enjoying doing spin classes and riding, and I like the way that feels. And I've run off and on for quite a while just for outdoor exercise, but I didn't really love it, but I knew I could run at least a 10K. And I was on the swim team in high school, so that's where I started from. That's where my head was. Okay, I know how to ride a bike, I know how to run, I know how to swim. We can do this, right? So I thought, okay, do I need a trainer or no trainer? And in a lot of things, do you need somebody to help you and push you and tell you exactly what to do? Or are you the type that wants to figure it out for yourself? And in this, I figured it out for myself. I did research online. I would do a little of this, a little of that. I'd wake up, what do I feel like doing today? Let's see. It's kind of cloudy. It'd be a good day to run. It's not super hot. I would kind of make decisions that way early on. And then as the months went by and weeks went by, then I learned to make more informed decisions in how I was going to train and how I was going to increase. I started, when I finally got my outdoor bike, I would ride 10 miles, 15 miles, and then, a couple months go by, now I'm riding 20 miles, 25 miles each time. multiple times throughout the week. And with running, it was kind of different because running, I feel like, is really taxing on my body. So I might do a long, like an 11-mile run, and then I wouldn't do that again for a couple of weeks. I would do little short 3 or 4 mile, or try to get a little faster. Still not fast, but really going back and forth and doing, like I said, a little this, a little of that, a little more of that. And I really didn't hardly start swimming until summer. I was only swimming maybe once a month before that because there's not really many places to swim around here until summer, when we have pools available and the river. I guess I could swim in the river anytime, but it's cold. So anyway, started swimming more and more and more throughout the summer, and that became the one I was a little worried about, but there you go. So in the process of training, in March I did a sprint triathlon, which is a little mini triathlon, and a half marathon. In May I did a sprint triathlon. In August I did a sprint triathlon, and each one provided a way to learn something that I could apply to this bigger event, just a bigger version. You learn and you adjust. You do it with your food, you do it with your exercise. And I adjusted the swimming. I started swimming, especially when I got to Cozumel, I started swimming in really hard currents in order to learn how to push against that current. I had no idea what the current would be like the morning of the event. So I had to, I was so worried. And thankfully, it wasn't that bad. There was one little section that the current was really hard, and we all kind of lumped up on top of each other, and it's a lot of people in the water, and you're trying to swim and you're getting smacked. Somebody smacked me just right in the nose, and you just got to keep swimming. What are you going to do? One girl actually did yell, I think, a profanity in some language, but I'm not going to take the time to take my head out of the water to yell. Just keep swimming. So here are my times. I'm proud of this. These are not great times, but for a first timer, we had an 8.5 hour time limit to complete this event. And the swim, you had a 1 hour, 10 minute maximum. If you didn't complete the swim in that time, you're disqualified. And I was just thinking, if I get disqualified in the first hour of this, hour 10 of this event that I've been training months and months and months for, I will be devastated. So I was very happy when I got out of the water in 51 minutes, well within the time. The bike, then in my head, it starts to get tricky because they start the timer when the last person gets into the water, and you don't know what time that was. But so I just knew in my head, okay, you got 8.5 hours total, you're 51 in. I allotted myself about 4 hours for the bicycle portion, and it took me 3 hours and 29 minutes. And then the run, I had allotted in my head 3.5 hours, and it took me 3 hours and 1 minute. So total of 7 hours, 41 minutes. There are people that do it in 5.5 hours. I don't know what those people are made of, but I'm happy because I was not disqualified and I made it over that finish line. So the day after, tiny bit sore. My lower back, tiny bit sore. My quads, tiny bit sore. That was like huge victory to me. I did yoga along the way. I did a lot of stretching along the way. Not day of, but during my whole training, I made yoga and stretching an important part of my training, and I just think it helped a lot. So, man, my show is going longer than I expected it to, but I don't know. I know that probably you haven't seen maybe an Ironman, and I just want to kind of walk you through it because it's a really unique experience and it's amazing, and for me it was life-changing. So in our live segment, I just want to talk about the help and support, because I am not a person that's really good at accepting help and support. And I learned how important it was, and I learned it in those last few hours, really. So I really want to thank the volunteers that were working the event. During the swim, we had divers underneath us, which was really cool to see them down there. We had people in kayaks, people on paddle boards that were watching to make sure you were staying on course. They would blow whistles if somebody kind of gets wonky and is going the wrong direction. There were boat captains. This is so cool. There were dolphin trainers out there because where we started was on this platform where you can pay and swim with the dolphins. They were feeding them and having them jump in the air for us to watch while we were waiting to get in the water. How cool is that? The sun is rising over the ocean and these dolphins are jumping out of the water, and I just knew it was going to be the most epic day. So I appreciate all the volunteers, the medical teams, the people handing us food and water and dumping ice on us, and just they were doing everything in their power to help us be successful. And they didn't have to do that. So that was really cool. And now I want to volunteer for some of these events because I never even thought about that. And they need volunteers. So, and they're everywhere in the world. How cool would that be? Pick a location. And if you don't want to do the event, help with it. So cool. People were out there picking up trash. I loved that. You know how I feel about trash. And seeing all the plastic that was used really did hurt my soul. But I so appreciated seeing people out there because we tried and it was in the rules. Like you could get a penalty and have to sit out for, I think it was 30 seconds. But if you purposely littered and were caught, you could get a penalty for that. They were very serious. You don't just throw your stuff, you know, and you see people do that in marathons. Thank you to the people who picked up the trash. Whether it was purposeful or not, there was a lot of trash. So that was awesome. And then my people. I had people. During the run, I had people, 3 different groups of people that were lined up yelling for me. I had a friend that came all the way from Texas with her cowbell. And I have friends that I've met there. Some that I've known for a year, some that I knew for a day. And they were yelling my name and they were handing me water, and they were watching me on the tracker, so they knew when I was getting close, and they saw me slow down on the tracker, so they had bananas. They were like, she needs fuel, and they gave me these bananas. I'm like, I'm not eating bananas while I'm running, but okay, thank you. So I ate a couple bites and I'm like, yeah, not eating any more bananas while I'm running. But it was amazing, and I didn't know how much that support would mean, and I didn't know how much it literally helped push me, because I am not going to walk in front of my friends. Even if I just met them 2 hours ago, they will not see me walk. So there were some times where I slowed down and my mind said, because people have told me, it's okay to walk a little bit your first time. Everybody walks a little bit the first time they do one of these. And so that little voice in my head that wants me to stop is saying, it's okay to walk. It's okay to walk. And I'd get down to the very far end where nobody I knew was, and I'd start to walk a little bit. And then that other voice that I've been training to say, it's not okay to walk because it's harder to start running again, and you have a time limit, and you didn't come here to walk. This is a run. So nothing is hurting. Like, I took an evaluation of my body. Do I really need to walk right now? If I need to, if I'm cramping or I'm having some sort of pain, okay. But no, that wasn't it. It was just the cop-out voice. And that was not acceptable. So I needed one more group of people down on that end, apparently, because I'm just not going to walk in front of my people. That was a really good lesson. And I had a mantra that I made up, I don't know when, some point during those last few weeks, where I would say, I would run at my pace. My pace is very slow, but it's a very doable pace. And I would tell myself, you can run this pace all day. You don't have to, but you could. And I would say that in my head. You don't have to. You only have to run it to the finish line. You could run this pace all day. And that helped me, and I finished. So, bam, done. Check that off the list. That was amazing. What's next? I don't know. I'm not going to say I haven't been looking on the old Google for marathons and bike races, and I need a thing. I'm going to have to come up with a thing. So if you know of some awesome event that's coming up in the next few months or year, let me know, because I'm interested in finding new ways to challenge and go to the next level. And will I do a full Ironman? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. I think that's probably where I'm going to head. But, one day at a time. I just got back. Let's give it a minute. But I do want to say, and I'm going to take this on a serious note for just a minute, because I've talked about how nervous I was that I might get disqualified. And there were people who didn't finish this race. There were people who were in medical for a lot of different reasons, and they weren't able to finish this race. But the reason I'm getting a little emotional here is there was one lady who didn't finish the race at all, and she passed away. She had a heart attack during the swim. And she was the exact same age as me. And I heart for her family, and wow, that just really, it just really hits home that even though these people are athletes and they're trained and they eat well and they take care of their bodies, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know why it happened then, and it's not the first time. I mean, it happens in these events sometimes. The anxiety, I don't know. I mean, it happened within the first hour. I think even the first 20 minutes of her swim. Why then? After all these months of training, would it happen right then? I don't know. So, it just made me think that freedom is the decision to live and die doing what you love. So, for me, if that were to ever happen to me in one of these events, I hope that my friends and family know that I was 100% doing what I loved. And what better way to go? What are you doing in your life that you love so much that you could say, what better way to go? So, I didn't mean to leave it on a down note, but I hope that gives you something to think about, because we all need something that is that important. Until next week, I hope you'll come back and join me, and we'll take it on a higher note next week. I promise. I will get through a week without crying, but this has been a lot. So, until next week, thank you so much for tuning in to me, Andi P, with Eat, Play, Live. Let's go. I've got a song that is just perfect. Here we go.